When I asked to hold my grandchild, my daughter-in-law said, "You're not safe. Don't touch him." She snatched him away and said, "You're just old and in the way." My son didn't even look at me. I choked back my sobs and said, "You'll realize how wrong you are when you read my letter." His name is Luke. He was born in the spring of 1987 during one of the worst thunderstorms I can remember. His father showed up drunk to the hospital and left before I even held my baby. I didn't cry then. I didn't have the time. The moment they placed that little boy in my arms, I made a promise to myself. He would never feel unwanted, never feel alone. I worked 2 jobs for most of his childhood. Waitressed at a diner in the mornings, cleaned offices at night. Still managed to be there for every school play, every scraped knee, every heartbreak. I didn't date for years. I couldn't risk bringing the wrong man around him. My parents were dead. My sister lived 3 states away, and friends disappeared when you stop having time to meet up. It was just me and Luke, and that was okay. That was enough. He was a good kid.
Smart. Kind.
Thoughtful. He used to leave me little notes in my purse. "Love you, Mom," or "Thanks for dinner." He got into college on a scholarship. First one in our family to go. I remember standing outside the bus station when he left, trying not to cry so he wouldn't feel guilty. I thought I did everything right. He met Marissa during his junior year. She came from a wealthy family. Her dad's a real estate guy in Atlanta. Her mom ran some nonprofit. She was beautiful in a way that felt cold, like a department store mannequin. Everything about her seemed controlled. She never smiled with her eyes. The first time I met her was Thanksgiving, about a year into their relationship. I remember because I made sweet potato casserole, and she pushed it around on her plate without touching it. When I asked if everything was okay, she smiled and said, "It's just not what I'm used to." I tried to laugh it off. Told her I'd make something different next time. She didn't answer. After dinner, Luke pulled me aside and said, "Don't be so emotional, Mom. She's just not like you." That stung. I didn't say anything, just nodded. I should have known then. They got married in a vineyard in North Carolina. I wasn't involved in any of the planning. I sat in the second row like a guest, not the mother of the groom. The photographer didn't even take a picture of me with Luke. When I asked for one, Marissa said, "We're trying to keep things low-key, Susan." She always called me Susan. The distance started then, but I kept trying. I sent cards. I called. Left voicemails. Sometimes Luke would call back. Mostly he didn't. When he did, it was always rushed. "Can't talk long. We're heading to dinner." "I'll call you back." Work's crazy. The calls got shorter, the gaps longer. When they announced the pregnancy, I found out through a mutual friend. They posted it on social media before telling me. I didn't even know they were trying. I sent a card with a handwritten note, congratulating them. No response. A month later, I mailed a baby blanket I knitted. It took me almost 6 weeks to finish it because my arthritis was acting up. Still nothing. I told myself they were just busy, that they'd come around when the baby came. Henry was born in February. I didn't get a phone call. I saw a picture of him on Facebook. Luke posted it with a caption, "Welcome to the world, little man." I cried for a full hour. Then I dried my face and sent a gift basket with soft onesies and a framed photo of Luke as a baby. I asked if I could visit.
3 weeks went by.
Then, out of nowhere, I got a text from Luke. "You can stop by Sunday at noon. Just for an hour, okay?" I spent the whole week getting ready. I had my hair done, picked out a soft blouse, made homemade chicken soup. I even practiced how I'd say hello. I didn't want to come off as too eager. When I got there, Marissa opened the door, but didn't smile. She just stepped aside. "He's sleeping," she said, like I should have known better. Luke was sitting on the couch, eyes on his phone. Henry was in a little swing in the corner of the room. My heart swelled the moment I saw him. He had the same nose Luke had as a baby, same tiny fingers. I whispered, "Hi, sweetheart," and took a small step forward. That's when Marissa moved fast, stepped between me and him like I was some kind of threat. "Don't touch him," she said. I blinked. "I just want to hold him." She crossed her arms. "You're not safe." I thought I misunderstood. What do you mean? I've seen how your hands shake. And the way you walk. You're old. You could drop him.
Old.
That word hit me like a slap.
I'm 63.
I've got arthritis, sure, but I've never dropped a thing in my life that mattered. She picked him up and held him close to her chest. You're just old and in the way. Luke didn't say a word, just kept staring at the floor. I looked at my son, hoping, begging for him to say something. But he didn't. He wouldn't even meet my eyes. I grabbed my purse. My hands were shaking then, but not from age, from heartbreak. I choked back the sob rising in my throat and walked to the door. Before I stepped out, I turned and said, "You'll realize how wrong you are when you read my letter." They didn't ask what I meant. They didn't care. 2 days later, I wrote a 6-page letter. I didn't hold back. I told Luke everything. About the nights I worked until 2 a.m. and still made his breakfast. About the Christmases I went without heat just to afford his gifts. About how I never asked for anything in return except to be included, to be seen, to be loved. I left that letter on my kitchen table for a week. But the more I looked at it, the less satisfied I felt. It wasn't enough. A letter wouldn't make them feel what I felt. They didn't need a reminder. They needed a reckoning. And I knew exactly how to give it to them. I didn't send the letter. Not yet. I folded it, placed it in an envelope, and locked it in my desk drawer. I told myself I'd wait for the right moment. Something inside me knew it wasn't time. They wouldn't hear the words, not yet. They'd dismiss it, just like they dismissed me. I started paying closer attention. I never stopped being a mother, and mothers know how to watch. I checked Marissa's social media every few days. I noticed something strange. Pictures of Henry, all staged like magazine ads. Matching outfits, perfect lighting, but no grandparents in sight. None from her side either. That struck me as odd. I knew her parents were wealthy and close by, yet they never appeared in a single photo with Henry. Not even one. That's when I started to wonder, was it just me they were cutting out or everyone? Then, about 3 weeks later, I ran into an old coworker at the grocery store, Pam, from the office cleaning job I used to work. We got to talking and I mentioned Luke. She tilted her head and said, "Your son married Marissa, right?" I heard her parents cut them off. That stopped me cold. "What do you mean?" She shrugged. "Friend of mine works in real estate. Said Marissa's dad pulled the down payment from their house a year ago. Said it was because of some fight." I didn't say anything, but my heart sped up. Later that night, I looked up their house address on the county property website. It was under both of their names, no mention of Marissa's parents. That meant they were paying the mortgage on their own. And I knew Luke didn't make enough to afford that place on his salary. I started connecting dots. The fancy clothes. The private daycare she bragged about online. The new SUV. None of it made sense with what I knew about their finances, unless someone else was helping. And then it hit me. They were in over their heads. Maybe that's why they kept me at a distance. Maybe they were afraid I'd see the cracks. And once I saw that, I knew what to do. I got a copy of my will. Hadn't updated it in years. Luke was listed as sole beneficiary. That changed that week. I called a lawyer and rewrote everything. I left half to a scholarship fund for single mothers and half to my sister's grandkids. I didn't tell Luke. I wanted him to find out the hard way. But I wasn't done. The next month, I started volunteering at a local community center that offered support to new mothers. Many of them alone, scared, under-resourced. I showed up every Wednesday and Friday, held babies, gave advice, knitted tiny sweaters. Every time I rocked a newborn in my arms, I thought about Henry and about how Marissa said I wasn't safe. Turns out, the women there didn't care about my arthritis. They called me Mama Sue. One girl said, "You're the only person who ever held my baby while I got to eat." It filled something in me I thought was gone. Meanwhile, I kept watching from the sidelines. Luke stopped calling completely. Marissa never reached out. But people talk. One of my neighbors mentioned she saw Luke at the courthouse. I checked online. Sure enough, he'd been sued by a credit card company. Then came the twist I didn't expect. An envelope arrived at my door one Saturday morning. No return address. Inside was a photo. It was of Marissa, arguing with a man in front of a Starbucks. The timestamp on the back was from 2 weeks prior. But it wasn't Luke she was with. This guy was younger, tan, muscular, and definitely not her husband. There was no note, just the photo. I stared at it for a long time, wondering what to do with it. If I wanted revenge, this was a weapon. But part of me hesitated. Not out of pity for Luke, but because I still hadn't seen him take responsibility. He hadn't earned my protection. So, I put the photo next to the letter in my desk drawer. I wasn't ready to strike yet, but now I had tools. And I was done being quiet. 2 weeks after I got the photo, I got a call from an unfamiliar number. I let it ring. Then the same number called again the next day. Finally, I picked up. It was Luke. His voice was low, tight. "Hey, Mom." I waited. "I know it's been a while," he said. Marissa's out of town for a few days. I thought maybe you could come by. See Henry." Just like that. No apology. No explanation. Just acting like nothing happened. I didn't say yes. I didn't say no either. I told him I'd think about it and hung up. That night, I pulled the letter back out. Reread every word. It still felt honest, still felt true, but now it didn't feel like enough. I looked at the photo again. Then I added something new to the envelope, a printed screenshot of the court case filed against Luke. I highlighted the amount they owed. Almost $19,000. Then I called my sister. I don't usually involve her in things like this, but I needed a second set of eyes. Someone who wasn't clouded by years of history and pain. I told her everything. From the baby blanket they ignored to Marissa snatching Henry out of my reach. Then I showed her the photo. She stared for a while, then said, "You think he knows?" "I don't think he knows anything anymore," I said. And that's when she hit me with something I didn't see coming. "Did you ever consider that maybe Marissa's isolating him? Controlling what he sees, what he hears?" It sounded dramatic. But then I thought about it. Luke had always been soft-spoken, easygoing to a fault. I'd seen it as a strength. But maybe Marissa saw it as an opening. Maybe he didn't defend me because he didn't feel like he could. Maybe he was so deep into her world, he didn't know how to speak for himself anymore. It didn't excuse him, but it changed the way I looked at things. I decided to go see Henry. I didn't bring soup. I didn't dress up. I wore jeans and an old cardigan and walked in like I belonged. Luke opened the door, looking tired. There were shadows under his eyes. His hair was longer than I remembered. "Hey," he said. "Thanks for coming." I nodded and stepped inside. The house looked different. Messier lived in. Toys on the floor. A baby swing by the window. Bottles piled in the sink. Henry was on a blanket in the middle of the room, babbling to himself. He looked up at me, wide-eyed. And then he smiled. I felt my knees go weak. I sat on the floor beside him and let him grab my fingers. I didn't cry, but it was close. "He's beautiful," I said. Luke sat on the couch.
"Yeah,
he is." Then he said it. Quiet, like he didn't want to admit it. "Things haven't been good." I looked up. "Marissa's?"
I don't know how to say it."
"She's different when it's just us. She checks my phone, tells me who I can talk to. If I go out for groceries, she calls every 15 minutes. I thought it would get better after the baby, but..."
He stopped.
Rubbed his face. "She tells me you're unstable, that you're trying to manipulate me, that you always guilt-tripped me growing up." My jaw clenched. "And you believed that?" He didn't answer, just looked away. I stood up. "I gave you everything. I went hungry for you. I wore the same shoes for 4 winters so you could have new ones." "I know," he whispered. "No, you don't. Because if you did, you wouldn't have stood there while your wife treated me like trash in my own grandson's presence." Henry cooed behind me. I turned back and gently picked him up. He felt warm and solid in my arms. "Does she know I'm here?" I asked. He shook his head. "She's at her sister's. Comes back Monday." "Good," I said, "because we're going to talk again." This time, without the lies. Then I did something else he didn't expect. I pulled out a sealed envelope from my bag. Not the letter, just the photo. Open it when I leave. I didn't stay long. Just enough to feed Henry a bottle and lay him down for his nap. Before I left, Luke hugged me. First time in over a year. You didn't deserve any of that, he said. I walked away without answering, because now the real work was starting, and I wasn't sure yet if he deserved to be spared from what was coming next. I waited 3 days. 3 days without a call, a text, a word from Luke. I didn't know if he read the photo or tore it up. I didn't know if he told Marissa or if she'd be at my door next, spewing her cold little lines. But I didn't worry. I wasn't afraid of her anymore. On the 4th day, I got an email from Luke. It was short, just a few sentences, but enough. Mom, I saw the photo. I asked her about it. She didn't deny it, said it's none of my business. I don't even know what's real anymore. I need time to think. Luke, I sat with that for a long time. I wasn't surprised, but it still hit. Watching your only child realize he built his life on a lie isn't satisfying. It's just heavy. But he needed the weight. He needed to feel what I felt. A week later, I got another message. This time, he asked if he could come over. Alone. I made coffee and waited. When he arrived, he looked hollowed out. His face was pale. His hands shook. She emptied our joint account, he said, sitting down at my kitchen table. 27 grand. Gone. Just took it and ran. I didn't say anything. She left a note. Said I was weak. Said I was holding her back. She's gone to Florida with him. I slid the letter across the table. The one I'd written all those weeks ago. He opened it slowly. Read every line in silence. I watched him go still. Then I saw tears fall on the paper. I didn't know, he said. About half of this. I guess I did. But I didn't think it mattered. I thought I was supposed to grow out of needing you. You didn't need to need me, I said. You just needed to remember I was there. He nodded. Quiet. Ashamed. That's when I gave him the folder I'd been building. Not just the photo, but every court record, every missed payment. A printed out version of her hidden second Instagram account where she posted photos of her new life under a fake name. Vacation shots. New boyfriend. Smiling with a drink in hand while Luke was home raising Henry. He stared at it all like it was in a foreign language. I don't know how to fix this, he said. You don't fix it, I said. You learn from it. Then you burn what's left and walk away. I helped him file the report for the stolen money. Helped him start divorce papers. Helped him transfer what little was left into an account with only his name on it. I connected him with a lawyer a woman at the community center recommended, one who worked for free when it came to custody cases with domestic manipulation. And I stayed silent when he found out Marissa had forged his name on a loan. That was the final nail. In court, she barely showed up. Filed one motion to delay, then vanished again. When she finally appeared by video call, she looked annoyed, bored. She called him a coward. Said he was trying to punish her for finding herself. The judge wasn't impressed. Luke got full custody. She didn't even ask for visitation. I watched my son break, then rebuild. Slowly. One piece at a time. I didn't move back into his life. I didn't become the full-time grandma. But I showed up every Thursday for PM, like clockwork. I watched Henry grow. I held him in my arms without being told I was unsafe. And every time I looked into his eyes, I felt a kind of peace. But I didn't forget. 1 year after Marissa vanished, I mailed her a letter. No return address. Inside was a copy of the first photo, plus another. One someone sent me of her in a cheap bar in Tampa, looking rough, mascara smudged, drink in hand, clearly alone. On the back, I wrote 5 words. You're just old and used. And that was it. That was my revenge. Not loud. Not violent. Just cold truth and a full circle she'd never escape. She took my son from me. I took everything else.